Welcome to the Strong Enough Podcast, your relationship wellness podcast. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is going to share with us how she was able to work through her chronic illness while avoiding a victim mentality. She's also going to talk about her passion to empower other women. Please help me in welcoming Aimee Carlson. Aimee, good morning. It's so great to be with you here today. How are you?
I am blessed and highly favored. It's Friday morning. I don't know when people are going to hear this, but I love Fridays.
I do as well. It's a beautiful Friday morning here, so that is also exciting. And your energy is great for a Friday morning, so thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Well, we're coming into a long weekend, and I don't know. I just like Fridays. Fridays, my schedule is pretty wide open, and I do that intentionally just to give myself a break. So maybe that is why my energy is so high. I'm like, whoa.
Well, I love it. So yeah, we got a long weekend coming up. I'm sure you have some exciting plans. Why don't you start, though, by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I don't know how long you want me to dig deep into this, but I suffered from multiple chronic diseases as an adult, and went the traditional route. You know, I had a brother who died from a chronic illness. It'd be 13 years ago now. And, going through all of the treatments with him, you would think my eyes would have been opened years and years ago, because he was doing what allopathic medicine told him to do, and he was declining and declining and declining. And he did all this research online, and he found this nurse who treated Indians, and she started developing this tea. And this is like 20 years ago. And, so he really researched this tea, and he really got into eating raw foods. And he did this, and lo and behold, for about a year, he didn't take any of his prescribed medications, which he needed, according to the doctors, to stay alive. Mm-hmm. He was and his entire life. But I didn't know what I know now back then. And I kind of poo-pooed, what he was learning. And it's like, well, yeah, but Jim, the doctors are really telling you need to do X, Y, and Z. And I ran into that same thing. I had all kinds of reproductive issues, and I kept going to the doctors, and they kept trying different things. And it ended up being at age 36, I was in menopause. At age 37, I had a hysterectomy, because they're like, we don't know what to do. You're not having any more children, right? No, I don't plan on having any more children. Okay, well, we're just going to take it out, because that's going to solve everything. Awesome, Yeah, so I had a hysterectomy, and today I know I didn't need to have that. I also had lots of weird things go on with me, Claudia. I would wake up in the morning. You can't see the scar on my face anymore, but I woke up one morning, and the entire left side of my face was so swollen, you couldn't see my jawline. It was just like right side and this big bubble, huge bubble. And, I go to the doctor, and they ended up having to do surgery, cut a hole in my face, stick tubes in to drain. I had an abscess that had just overnight exploded. Another time I woke up in the morning, and I'm like, what is going on with my mouth? I had not one canker sore. I had 100 canker sores inside my mouth, down my esophagus. I couldn't talk. I couldn't swallow. It was horrible. Mm. And the doctors, well, you're under stress.
Well, now I am.
Thank you. Something I don't know. So I went, and I never got true health. I had migraine headaches that I actually lost the vision on my left side from. And I've gained that back now, but always never anything they can do. And so honestly, I got to a point in my life where I'm like, well, this is as good as it gets. And I always try to be grateful. There are people in far worse condition than I am, so I'm going to just learn to live with this. And then I got into this really accidental journey Somebody invited me to learn about essential oils, and I'm like, essential oils, please keep that voodoo over there. I want nothing to do with it. But I went finally after she invited me for a year, every month without fail. And I'm like, oh, for the love of all things holy, if I come, would you please stop inviting me? And she's like, yes. So I did. And I was intrigued. I opened my brain just enough to hear something that stuck with me and resonated with me. And that led me down this whole journey of learning how the body actually works and how innately it will heal itself when we give it the right tools. And it has been a fabulous journey. Like I said, I was in menopause at age 36, still in it. I'm 56 years old, 20 years. I have no symptoms. I have not had symptoms for the last 8 years. I got the vision back on my left side. I'm in the best physical condition I've been in my entire life, because I learned how to give my body what it needs in order for it to do naturally what it's created to do.
I want to say first what I'm sure everybody is thinking who is watching this versus listening, and that is there's no way that you are 56. So I'm just going to put that out there. That, I guess, is a testament to everything that you're doing for yourself because you look truly amazing.
Thank you.
I want to back up a little bit. There's a lot that you unpacked right there. So I want to go through it a little bit. You said first that your brother was going through chronic illness and then you started to experience chronic illness. So was there a point where you felt, well, maybe this is just genetic. This is just my lot in life. I just have to deal with it. This is apparently a familial situation.
Okay, so that's a great question. And that is really what a lot of society believes, that, we're just, born into this family and we just need to accept that this is the way it is. So number one, I will tell you, I don't care what genetic predisposition you have. We all have genes in our body that are good and bad, but we need a trigger to turn them on. So it's not necessarily that you are born with these genes. It's the lifestyle you live to be what turns it on and what doesn't. Because we all have genes in our body that are cancerous. They're all, that will turn cancer on. It's, do we live a lifestyle that's going to flip them on? And so we need to understand that. And where we can turn genes on, we can also turn them off. Now, my brother's illness, he was born with missing part of his immune system. So that truly was a genetic thing, and it passes down. The women carry it. I'm a carrier of it. I have a son who also has the same thing he had, which is missing part of his immune system. So that is why he had his chronic illness. It just was this escalade of things throughout life. In fact, he lived to be 45 years old, and he was told, my parents were told when he was younger that he might not see age 30.
Wow.
So, so he lived 15 years longer than he was supposed to. So no, I do not believe that what I had was genetic. I don't believe that it's passed down there. Even cancer, even, breast cancers, we know that cancers are 90 to 95% lifestyle related. So while 10 to 5% might be genetic, we have to do something to trigger those to turn on.
What did it feel like to learn that or to understand that? Because I think it is so easy for us to say, I can't do anything about this situation, whatever that situation is, chronic illness, and there's so many different illnesses that we go through. So how, was that empowering for you, or what was that process like to learn that?
Let me back up. Part of the story I don't tell a whole lot of people is for 30 years, I was an auto mechanic. So I worked on cars. I was a certified auto mechanic. That was a rough lot. As a woman in the 80s working on cars, not real fun sometimes. And I had to decide back then, do I want to be a victim and play that victim role that, oh, woe is me, and look at how people are treating me, and look at how life is, and, all of that? Or do I want to take control of what I have control of? And at that time, I took control, and I ended successful because I flipped the switch on my mind to say, I'm not going to be a victim. So with my health, going to all the doctors and never getting a solution. And you heard in my story, I decided, well, okay, this is as good as it's going to get. And the knowledge that I had at that time, that was as good as it was going to get. But I grew my knowledge. I never felt a victim. I never felt woe is me. I just said, there's people far worse, right? Because there always is, and I can't take that stance and move forward and have good energy about me. So no, I feel like knowing what I know today, even little bits of what I know today, is so empowering. How good does it feel, Claudia, if you've got something wrong with yourself, to say, I have the information and know how to do things with my body that can fix this and get it back into homeostasis? That's like, yes.
No, I love that. I also love that you were an auto mechanic. So let's dive into that just for a quick second. I promise we'll get back to this other stuff. But what led you to that career, particularly in a time when it was really difficult? For a lot of careers, it's still really difficult for women to be in a male-dominated arena. In the 80s, it was really difficult. So talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
So I went to college. I had a child out of wedlock at the age of 19. I was really struggling with career choice, making ends meet, and so forth. And my father, in 1978, opened up his first automotive service center. And he said, I know you're going to school to be an accountant. Why don't you come work for us? And I'm going to have you be a cashier, just kind of learn about the business, and then I'll have you train with our accountant and become our accountant. Well, never did run down that path. I got in there, I learned the business, I got into management, and and the blessing about that is he knew, even though I was his child, I'm not just going to put you in at the top of the organization. I was down at the bottom, and I learned my way up. What I needed to do. So that's how I got into it, is because of family. And my dad kind of, hey, you got my grandson here. I want to make sure you guys are okay.
That is super cool. And I do appreciate the fact that he did make you work your way up. Do you think that really had an effect on your work ethic growing up and even now?
Definitely. We're never handed anything in life. We truly aren't. And if you are, there's absolutely no appreciation for it, no gratitude for it. And so I believe the same thing. I did the same thing with my son. I brought him also. We were a 3-generation family business. I had to buy the business. It was not handed down to me, even though it was family. And I brought my son in, and he did the same thing. He, from the age of 14, he worked in the stores, and he had to work his way up. He went to college, got a degree, went out and worked in the real world for a year or two, and then came, back and worked for me. So there's no handouts here. And I don't want to get political, but I think that's part of the problem, because, and I know we're way off topic here, but as a single mom, and I was struggling, and I was like $100 short every month for making ends meet, and trust me when I say the apartment I lived in, I think it was like $175 a month or 75, can't even remember what. It was nasty. It was this little motel that had been turned into efficiency apartments. When you opened up the door, cockroaches fell down. Nasty, but that's what I could afford. And even then I was still shy money. And I went and I applied for food stamps. I thought if I could just get a little bit of assistance to help us out through this hump. I'm out. My first job was Mutual of Omaha Insurance Company, and I'm a file clerk, right? And I'm like, okay, I can learn this job and I can move up the ranks. I can develop a career here, in this industry. And if I can just get some help in the interim, I'd be okay. This social worker looked at me and she said, you make too much money. And so, if you would go on assistance completely, you would make more money being on just assistance. And I looked at her and I said, but where does that get me in 5 years? Meaning, how are we moving forward? And she's like, oh, if you're worried about when your son goes to school, just have another child. This is what I'm told. I was so deflated. I wrote to every congressman, every senator, every state representative saying, this is what's wrong with our system, is that we're not helping women get self-sufficient and helping them grow and become confident and have that inner self-love that they know they can do things. We're making them completely 100% dependent. And that is crazy.
I'm glad you got on the soapbox, and we are way off topic, and that's okay, because we're still talking about empowering women, and isn't that what it's all about? I love that you brought women into it, though, because I honestly never even really thought of it that way. I have thought of kind of the issues that we have with assistance, and it can become that cyclical issue, because it's like, I've heard the same thing from other people where, well, you make too much here, so if you just do this instead, or if you're on assistance, you can't go get this other job because then you're making too much, so you lose the assistance. So it just creates that dependence. But I never even equated that with women, because you said, well, have another baby, and obviously men can't do that. So that's very interesting, and I never thought about it that way. So it's so intriguing to me that at a really young age, like, you got it immediately and you weren't willing to go down that path.
Well, I made the decision when I became pregnant that I was going to be a mom. Right? I had lots of choices out there, but I decided that this is what I was going to do. And I was going to create a good life for my son. And so being dependent on assistance is not a good life for my child. I wanted him to have, opportunity in life. I didn't want to live. That's the easier, softer way out. It's the easier, softer way out. Here's the other thing too, and since we're going down this hole, and this has nothing to do with women, but here's the other thing about assistance. Assistance is there for people who truly need it, not because you're lazy and you won't get off your goddamn ass. All right? And that pisses me off, because I was there and I worked 3 jobs, making sure that we had food on the table, I could pay the bills, and we had a reliable car to drive. That's what you do. Would I have wanted that to be different? Absolutely. But those were the choices that I made, and that was the path that we had. About the whole assistance thing, because my brother, we talked about him earlier, when he was 45 years old. For the last 10 years of his life, he was not out of the hospital more than 3 weeks at a time. He would be in the hospital for a week. They'd pump him full of stuff and get him right back out of the hospital, because the hospital is the sickest place to be. They didn't want him in there because they didn't want him getting sicker. So, and they would send him home with, nurses and so forth. And even with this kind of history, and he had medical history, piles and piles and piles and piles high, could not get him assistance. He had a family. He could not work. Couldn't get him assistance because he owned a home. Absolutely insane to me. But somebody has, they're getting, assistance because, I got back pain. Well, work a freaking desk job.
Right.
Something, right? But yet you see them out playing with their kids and, having more kids, but I got back pain. I got sciatica, can't work, So, it's like, if you're able-bodied, find a way to work. Get out there and do it, because the assistance should be for those people who truly, truly need it.
I just love you.
Thank you.
You are fire, and I like it. I like it a lot. What gave you that internal mindset? Was it your parents? Was it some event growing up? Or was it that moment when you were sitting there with the person who wanted you to have more kids and not work a job? Like, what brought you to that mindset?
I think we get to our mindsets through a combination of things. I think we have events occur in our lifetime, and we do hard things, right? We all have hard paths. We all have things that we pull ourselves through. Well, a lot of us do. There's some people who don't pull themselves out of that. And I don't know where that mind comes from. I know there's been some really dark times in my life where I was like, what am I doing? What is this? What is this all about? Is this really worth moving on? We're talking suicidal thoughts and not that feeling that low, mm-hmm. that, I didn't feel worthy of living. And, I had my son at that time, and it's like, hey, he needs me. He pulled me out of some of those dark spots and many other times, in my life. But I think having a faith, mm-hmm. Having a faith that, God is going to bring me through this, that to me is what has brought me through. I watched my dad go through really hard times, and sink into even deeper despair and get himself out. And so maybe I had a good role model with that. Maybe it was these life events that led me to be where I am at today. And I had to go through those, because every single one of those things makes me the woman I am today. Mm-hmm. And then having that faith in God and surrounding myself with people that had something I wanted. I didn't choose. When I got older, not when I was younger, when I got older, I started learning that who I hung around with made a huge difference in my life. Mm-hmm. And so I knew I got to find not just people who are at the level I am, but I got to level up. I need to be hanging around with people, and those people are in my inner circle. They're hundreds of steps ahead of me, because I want them in my inner circle, so that their crumbs coming down, that's like gold to me. Right?
I've heard that saying before. It's like you are the sum of your 5 closest friends. So it sounds like you certainly believe in that.
Oh, think about it. Have you ever walked into a room and you just know, I want to meet that person? Mm-hmm. Have you done that? You walk in a room and you're like, all right, I'm meeting this person come hell or high water before this event, is over with. There's just energy about people. We all have energy. We're energy. Mm-hmm. And I want that positive flow of energy coming out of me. And I can't do it if I'm surrounding myself with people who are like, oh, woe is me. And they're not taking personal responsibility, and they're not looking to improve themselves. And they don't feel like they've got a purpose here. When we don't have a purpose and we don't know what that purpose is, we're just kind of skating through life. When we identify this, all right, God, I gotcha. I'm hearing you loud and clear. This is my purpose. Now, every day is a gift, and every day is a blessing to get out there and teach and preach and do what you do, to lean into that passion.
When you think about that circle, do you include family members, intimate relationships, or just your friend circle that you want to lift you up? Let's talk a little bit about everybody else that could be in that circle.
That's a great question. And it's not exclusive. We're born into a family. Doesn't mean they have to be in your inner circle. Here's the thing. You have to look at this. You've got this, circle kind of around you. That's your inner circle. That is what you protect with everything in you, right? That's that 5 core people that you allow in. These are people that you are in contact with on a daily basis. Does not have to be family members. It can be whoever is encouraging and uplifting and empowering you. Then you've got this middle circle, right? These are people that are, you're in contact with them, but not frequently, so you don't have to be as selective with those people. I still tend to be a little bit more selective with them, but it's not as much impact on you and your energy. And then you've got that outer circle. So we've got 3 rings of relationships. And that outer circle is people that you talk to them once, you're an acquaintance, you know who they are, but they have really no bearing on your life. All right. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It's funny because I tell my husband many times, you're in the inner circle right now, sweetie, but I might be popping you out to that mid one if you don't shape up.
I love that threat. That is fantastic. Do you feel like that inner circle can include people who aren't physically close to you? So when we think about long distance friendships or relationships, can that comprise that inner circle? Or do you feel like that transfer of energy really has to be close up?
Before COVID, I would probably have answered that question with, I feel like you need to touch, you need to feel, you need to sit eye to eye with people, you need to feel their energy. You need to be with them. I still contend that's the best way. When we look at mental health and where we are as a nation today versus 18 months ago, that is the reason why. But I believe that you can make connections. Energy is transferable. It doesn't have to be a physical connection for energy to transfer. So I think that you can develop relationships. There's a lot of people through my podcast I have met, and we've continued to be good friends, and I've never met them physically in person. The gal that I'm business partners with, Naomi Damas, we knew each other for 2 years virtually online. We started a business together almost 8 months before we ever physically met face to face. So,
wow. And that's going swimmingly. So that's good. You mentioned mental health. So I do want to back up to that really quickly. You talked about some very dark times that you went through personally, and that it seems like your son was a huge factor in what kept you going. Was there anything else internal that kept you going? Or I guess what I'm getting at is, for people that maybe don't have that lifeline of a child, what would you say to them? What can keep them going in that darkest of times?
Sure. Number one is, if you're awake today, you got 100% survivability through hard times. You have 100% survivability through hard times. That you're not alone. That while you don't feel like you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, I promise you there's a light there. I promise you that it will get better. You have to just put your faith into knowing that what you are experiencing right now, right this moment, as deep and awful and lonely and empty that it is not the end all to be all. And it might be that dark spot. And you know what? Diamonds. Do you know how diamonds are formed? They're this black coal, and they have to go into the fire, and they have to, get, what do we call that? I can't think of the word.
There's a lot of heat, a lot of pressure, a lot of...
Yes. So, sometimes we're taken through a situation for our own benefit, for a lesson learned, so that we can move forward. And here's the thing, as much as you have your eyes and sights on something and a goal of what you think that you want, trust me when I say God's got a much bigger picture for your life, much bigger than you could ever imagine. He loves us that much, and he's going to carry us through all of those times. So, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. As long as you're doing that, you've got 100% survivability on hard times.
I love that. I just wanted to sit with that for a second, because that is such a unique perspective that I don't think we hear very often. Where did that come from for you? Was it faith?
I believe it's faith. There were times in my life, I lost my mom at a real young age. We grew up, my grandfather was a minister. We grew up in the church. I was heavily involved in the church until I was 10 years old. From 10 years old to 20-ish years old, I wanted nothing to do with God. God, you are a terrible person. You took my mom, my grandma, great. I had 2 years of a span of time where I lost a lot of family members, and life as I knew it, done. It just door closed, and we didn't, that was it. It just turned upside down. And as a young child, we don't have that capacity to walk through that and understand what the heck is going on. So I thought God was a real punishing God. And I was like, I didn't believe he existed. If you existed, how the hell could you let this happen in our lives? But eventually I got back into my faith. There was enough seed planted when I was a young child that I knew I needed to get, back in there. And quite honestly, Claudia, I don't know how people survive life without a faith in God. I really don't, because that's who has all control. I don't, he does. And that's who I lean on. I mean, there are times in my life where I literally can see myself just laying on his lap with his arms wrapped around me and just I sobbed, and physically I'm in my bed with my head on my pillow, but I can just physically see him with his arms wrapped around me. He's loving me and he's holding me through this entire thing, so I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I think so.
Okay.
When you were struggling with chronic illness on your own, did that ever shake your faith at all?
So I think it's very normal to question your faith. I used to think my faith is not strong enough. I'm questioning and I'm doubting, and I'm like, what's going on? But back when Jesus was alive and he's right in front of their faces, they're still questioning, their faith. So you got the man right there and you're still not believing, what is going on. So I think we're made to question. We are made with our own free will. We're made to question so that we can learn more. So yeah, I've always had questions, what is going on? Really? You're really going to send me through this again? It just, what is this really real? Is there really heaven? Is there what eternity? Can you even wrap your head around eternity? Physically as humans, we can't.
Absolutely.
So I heard in a funeral service one time, my son was 18 years old. This is when the war's over in Iran, first came out, and they lost a classmate, first classmate that they lost, and church was packed, full. He was a Marine, and the minister said, and this resonates and has stayed with me my entire adult life, we ask earthly questions that there are only heavenly answers for. And that really hits to me. We're not designed to know all the answers here on earth.
And it seems like that's a very unique way that you can look at things and feel more settled with things that you can't understand, because I think that is a lot of the struggle, or that's the struggle that a lot of people go through, is they want all the answers. They want to understand everything that's happening and why did this happen and what made that happen.
Right. And here's the thing too, we'll never know all the answers. We never will. I don't have all the answers. In 10 years, I'm not going to have all the answers. We just don't have all the answers. But what I do know is that the only thing I can control is me. Mm-hmm. I can control my thoughts. What I'm thinking up here is going to make these words, right? These words are going to determine what my actions are going to be. This is it, these three things. And if it doesn't start up here with my thoughts, my words are going to be really bad. And then my actions are going to be really bad too. So I got to be up here with my thoughts on a regular basis. Ooh, is this serving me well? Get it out. Get it out. You know, we can control those thoughts. We get a choice of whether those thoughts are going to stay with us and resonate with us and keep us in that low frequency zone, you know, or we choose, you know, and sometimes, Claudia, there's days where like, screw it. I'm in my pity party today, you know, and I'm taking the day and I'm frustrated and I'm going to feel frustrated. And that's the other thing too. I think some people feel like when an emotion hits them, emotions are emotions. There's no good emotions. There's no bad emotions. They're simply emotions. When they hit you, feel them. Don't shove them down. Don't say, oh, no, that's a bad emotion. Can't feel it. I was raised, there were good emotions and there were bad emotions. Feel it, because I promise you, 90 seconds-ish, you're going to feel it and it's going to move on. When we don't feel them and we don't allow ourselves to feel them, that's when they stay trapped and then they cause all kinds of havoc inside of our body and our overall health. So feel those emotions. Sit with them when you need to sit with them. If you need to have yourself a pity party, get on it. Have that pity party and then move on.
I love that because I do try to time my pity parties in all seriousness of like, I'm really upset about whatever it is. I'm going to give myself an hour or a day or whatever it is, not more than a day, but that time to sit with those feelings and actually let them process and then move forward. I want to ask you quickly about something that you just mentioned. You know, we control our thoughts and then what comes out of our mouth. We as women, I think a lot of times struggle with what is in our thoughts, particularly about ourselves. You know, we really struggle with our self-worth, our esteem. What are some things that you do to control those thoughts in your mind and love yourself?
That's a great question, Claudia. I, for years, beat myself up how I looked. And I can still get into that. I can still get into that, you know, deal. Well, you know, I can, you know, you're always going to find something that you can be critical of your body. But here's the thing. If you can't love your body, if you can't love yourself, how in the world are you going to expect anybody else to love you? Number one. And number two, how can you go out and love anyone else? It starts right here. So we have to get comfortable. I'm not saying that you don't seek to improve, but we need to be comfortable with exactly where we're at. We need to take that look in the mirror and say, you are beautiful. I'm 100% believer in affirmations. Mm-hmm. That is energy that we're putting over ourselves. Our words are powerful. What am I going to speak to myself? If I'm saying to myself all the time, you're fat, you're fat, you're fat, what's going to happen? You're going to be fat because your brain, your subconscious brain is hearing that, and that's what you're going to be. You know, I'm so stupid. Oh, God, what, you know, how many of us say that? Oh, I'm so stupid. Don't do that because your unconscious brain knows I'm stupid. You know, and that's the message that it's playing inside for you. You know, I'm so forgetful. I'm never on time. Those messages, look at what you are saying to yourself. If you're saying these critical things to yourself, yes, you're not going to love yourself. You can't possibly love yourself. If you spoke to your child, you're stupid. You are stupid. You're stupid. You are forgetful. You are fat. What's that child going to think?
All the terrible things.
You're doing it to yourself. Stop it. Stop doing that. I wish you could see what I have in front of me. Open to possibilities. I am worthy. Money comes easily. I am successful. I have a strong body and mind. I have positive thoughts. I am living in kindness. I am loving. I eat healthy and clean. Relationships are easy for me. I am present. I have all these powerful, positive words sitting in front of me.
Why do you think we do that to ourselves? Because you gave a great example of if you said this to your child. So let's even say if you said this to your significant other or your best friend or whoever it is, like we would never do those things unless we are an abusive personality. So let's say those of us who are normal, we would never do those things. So why do we do them to ourselves?
Because we don't have good self-worth. That's it. We don't have good self-worth because when we have good, positive self-worth, we don't allow that to happen in our lives. We don't allow other people to treat us in a bad way. We know our healthy boundaries. We know them for boundaries that we've set for others, and we know it for boundaries we've set for ourselves. So if you are allowing people to treat you in a manner which is not positive and having a positive effect on you, if you're not speaking positive things, you don't have a positive self-worth for yourself. And that's where we need to work.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that self-worth for a second. And we have gone down a long and winding path that I have loved, to be honest with you, but we're back to where we started. And that is, you talked about your health challenges and you talked about having a hysterectomy at the age of, I think, 36.
Mm-hmm.
Did that affect your self-worth as a woman?
No, because here's the thing. I had learned way early on that, who I am as a woman has nothing to do with my physicality. All right. I didn't have to, it had nothing to do with being, and I think I grew up that way too. And let me explain. I was that child in school that looked like toothpick legs. In fact, I was called Twiggy. I didn't look like a girl. Even in high school, I think I weighed 90 pounds. I was really, really tiny. And so I never felt like a woman. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I didn't have the curves like a woman. I didn't physically look like a woman. I looked more like an athlete without any muscles.
That's a great description.
If that makes any sense. I don't think that having a uterus, not having a uterus, now later in life, I went and had breast implants put on, which, by the way, I would never do, today, just because I had none. And, mm-hmm. That's when we allow the outside world to dictate who we are. And who we should be as women. And being a woman is more about the inside, that nurturing side. Women are very nurturing, very loving, very creative, very passionate, and it has more to do with that than, hey, I'm a size, 40 triple D, and I've got, whatever, the reigning, look is. That has nothing to do. And I will never go to like a Hooters restaurant, anything like that plays up women as this is all you have to offer is your physical body. I hate that. And even though I'm in good physical shape, I don't necessarily walk around in clothes that show that either, because my physical body is not what makes me a woman. And that's my personal belief.
No, and I think that's great because I know so many women do associate whether, we just had a guest on who lost a lot of her hair when she was going through a very stressful time in her life. And that really affected in that moment how she felt about herself and her womanhood, because she really identified with her hair. A lot of her identity was around this just gorgeous flowing hair that she had. And so I think, the way that you look at things is probably a lot easier to love yourself and to deal with. I would love for other people to know how to get there.
And I wish I knew what that answer was. I wish I knew, there's when the light switch turned for me. I can't say that it was any one given moment. And I can't say that I'm always this rock solid in how I view things either. I still have moments. I can get on a stage and come off the stage and go, what the hell did I just say? I just blah, 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 there's self-doubt. I still have I'm human. I'm not on this podium and never have self-doubt. My business partner is a breast cancer thriver. She, at the age of 35, was diagnosed with 2 invasive breast cancer tumors just this past year. And she had implants that actually were making her sick, and she had them taken out, and she's completely flat. And she is totally okay with that. This does not define that I'm a woman, and she's beautiful, and it doesn't, so.
It's very societal, I think. We draw so much of that insight from outside sources.
Here's the one thing I can tell you guys. If you don't want to live in fear, if you want to have good self-worth, if you want to live a positive energy life, if you want to feel good and you want to have good, positive mental health, here's the things that I'm going to tell you to do each and every day. All right. Number 1, wake up in the morning and have a morning routine. Get outside, get your feet on the ground, barefoot. Get out there, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you can do. I actually do my journaling and devotionals at that time as well. Start your day that way. Set your intentions. What is it going to be like? Number 2, get all the junk out of your life. And I'm not just talking toxins out of your house and toxins out of your food. It is, what are you watching? What are you putting in your brain? Stop with the media, stop with the news, stop with the social medias. That is just fear mongering and keeping us in this heightened, escalated state. We've got our cortisol levels are off the charts if we're embarking on that. So stop that. Stop the junk coming in. That is with the chemicals that we're surrounding ourselves, the food that we're surrounding ourselves, and the thoughts and what we're allowing, and even the music that we're listening to. Pay attention. What are the words? What are they speaking over you? And then thirdly is have a passion. Have and identify. And it took me years to figure out what my passion was. Years to figure that out. But when you do, your days will never be the same.
Tell us a little bit about your passion.
I am super passionate about empowering women. That is my mission in life. That is what I was created to do. I was created to get out there and help. I know what it's like to be down in the trenches and down in the dumps and coming from those dark holes. And I know what it's like on the other side. And I want women to have that. I want you to feel like you have a good life right now. I want you to feel this energy. So my mission, my big, bodacious mission, is to transform 1 million women's lives across the world. That's my mission.
I love it. And you can see the passion and the joy that comes out of you when you talk about that, for sure.
And when you have that, when you know what it is that you were called to do, some of us, our gifts are teaching. Some of us, our gifts are leading. Some of us, our gifts are serving. I see it as all three of those. With this passion, I'm leading, I'm teaching, I'm serving others. some are meant to gift. Some are meant to create. Some are, we all have gifts and unique gifts. And when you tap into that, there is nothing that's going to stop you. Absolutely nothing is going to stand in your way. You are going to get up joyful and ready to hit that day and go after your dreams. It's a great spot to be in.
I agree. Well, you gave everybody some amazing, I think, wellness advice. Give me a piece of relationship advice for the audience.
In terms of this could be any relationship. All right. So healthy boundaries. Identify for yourself what lines, just like when we're a parent, and I go back to parenting, because it's easy, a pet, what lines are we going to allow them to cross and what are they not? We have those definitive lines, right? Where, oh, no, this is safety line, that's a no, and I don't care how mad you get, this is a safety issue. We need to have those healthy boundaries for ourselves. We cannot have good, healthy relationships without having those healthy boundaries. What words are you going to allow to be spoken over you? What actions are you going to allow into your life? It's okay to get mad at each other. It's okay to have disagreements. Oh, Lord, if we were all the same, that would be so boring. But are we doing it in a respectful way? Are we doing it in a way that we can hear each other? Because if we're disrespectful in the way that we disagree with each other, what that means is we're so intent on getting our message across that we're not even hearing the other person. We're not stopping to listen. We're not stopping to put ourselves in that other person's shoes and say, okay, I can see where you're coming from. I might not agree with it, but I can see where you're coming from, right? We have to have that ability to listen. We have to have that ability to set out what are those boundaries. And when the boundaries get crossed, what action are you going to take? And know what's going on. My husband and I, when we got married, we sat down. This is what we expect out of each other financially. This is what we expect out of each other, physically. This is what we expect out of each other when it comes to having, conversations. Now, granted, it was a work in progress, but I tell you what, we can have disagreements today. There is no shouting. I know my husband is a processor. And if we've got something that's going on that we're in a disagreement with, he needs to go out on his own and he needs to work it out. And then when he's ready to talk, he's going to come down. We're going to sit down. We're going to have a cup of coffee, iced tea. We're just going to sit and we're going to have a good conversation. We're going to hear each other. We've learned how to be able to talk with each other without taking on that other person's feelings, without taking on our own feelings, and really do it kind of non-emotional, because when we're in that emotional state, we can't hear, we can't, have a good conversation. And that took work. I always tell the story of when we were first married. We had an argument over money. Now I was single for 10 years and he had been single for 20 years. So we're, very independent people. Mm-hmm. And we come together, and this whole money thing, we're not gelling at all, with it. And so we had an argument over money, and he's like, fuck it, I don't need to be doing this, and da-da-da. And he grabs the suitcase and he packs it up, and I'm sitting, we had a townhouse at that time, I'm upstairs, and I'm like, I think he's leaving me. And I'm like, interesting. And I hear him go out the door, and it's like, is he leaving the night? What's going on? And I hear him go out into the garage. I hear the garage door go up, hear the garage door go down, hear the door slam. He comes stomping back up and looks in the room that I'm in, and he says, my freaking car's in the shop. So he couldn't go anywhere, and I was dying laughing. And we laughed today, because this is very early on in our marriage, because we know, had his car been there, it might have been a very different outcome for us. And so to me, that was God looking out over our relationship, that, and this is what we've learned. I'm a talker. I need to talk things out in order for me to process. He's not. He's silent. He needs to work it out inside of his head. So it's like, well, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Just leave me alone. Let me die, come back. So we had to learn that about each other, because we only knew each other for 4 months before we got married.
Wow. And how long have you guys been married?
17 years.
Congrats.
17 years. Yep. We've had 4 good ones. No, I'm just kidding.
It's been a couple great ones mixed in there.
Yeah, it's all good. No, it is. And he has got my back every turn of the corner. He is my biggest cheerleader, my biggest supporter. And I just love him for that. And it's, so just know your boundaries, decide that you're going to work it out, and decide. Here's another thing when it comes to marriages, decide. Now, I want to phrase this. If you're being physically abused and emotionally abused, that's another story. I'm not talking about that. But decide you're in it. Mm-hmm. You're in it. The easy route out is to walk away. The hard part is being in it and working through those difficult times and figuring out, how are we going to make this gel? Where do I need to grow? Where does he need to grow? Where do we need to grow together as a couple? But you got to be in it 100%.
Absolutely. Well, Aimee, where can people find you if they want to feel this fire every day?
Listen, we teach, we've got a group coaching program called the Vitality Accelerator, and that's where we teach people how to remove the vitality blockers. We teach them how to boost their body's natural detox, how to accelerate fat loss with ease, how to reverse aging, and how to reduce stress and rejuvenate. Those are the 5 guiding principles that we teach. You can just go to transformingwomenshealth.com. That's our website. You can click on it. You can get into our social media. You can join our newsletter. You can set up a call. If you're like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done feeling the way I'm feeling. I'm ready to jump in there and make a difference. Set up a discovery call. It's right on there. And you can also tune into the podcast, The Toxin Terminator, right from there as well.
Awesome. Aimee, I am so grateful that we spent this time together today. It went a totally different path than I think either of us anticipated, but I am thrilled with that. I absolutely love what we got to talk about today, and I'm just hoping that you will be in for a part 2, because I think we have so much more to dive into.
Absolutely. You just got to reach out to me, Claudia. You've been a joy as a host, and just reining me back in, pulling me back in. But no, I think these are the best conversations is, let it go where it needs to go.
I completely agree. Aimee, thank you so much for your time today. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
I really hope you guys enjoyed my conversation with Aimee as much as I did. Her energy and passion are truly contagious. So remember, until next week, you are strong enough and you are worth it. Thank you for listening to the Strong Enough podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching Strong Enough. And on YouTube, we're available on the Spear Talk channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Strong Enough Pod. If you have suggestions for an upcoming episode or a future guest, please reach out at strongenoughpod@gmail.com. Remember, you are worth it.